All right, everybody, welcome to the Fastlane Insider Insights. This is a monthly segment we hope to do where we interview an entrepreneur who is doing Fastlane things. Today we have Greg Rutowski, who is the owner of Hackett Tactical Equipment. Um, just to get started, I'm not going to explain what he does. I'll let him do that. Greg, give us basically your elevator pitch for what you do, what you sell, and who your audience is.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Greg Rutowski. I'm the owner of Hackett Equipment, and we make tactical gear specifically for like the shooting range. I bought the business about a year and a couple months ago, and it's really taken off since. So it's really cool to see the progress throughout the months. I mean, it's like time's going by so fast. I can't really like
Mm.
it's hard to even like say how fast it's going. It's just like lightning.
So, what I would like to start with this is what is your origin story as far as um, being an entrepreneur? Was there an FTE? Was there a moment at a job where you're like, I just need to be an entrepreneur? Were you selling lemonade as a kid? What makes you go to, I don't know, biz buy sell and say, you know what, I'm going to buy a business?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I do road construction, and so I was working a lot of like long hours, late nights and weekends on the highway, and I would see all these people with like their boats driving by, on like a Thursday or a Friday
Hmm.
afternoon, and it's like, why can't that be me? And then so I started uh I started looking at like stocks a little bit. I since I was working all those hours, I was able to save up money to where I had like excess of it, and started looking at trading stocks, and I did that for a little bit.
Hmm.
And then I realized that that really wasn't my forte. So then I kind of moved into real estate investing. We bought and I guess flipped and rented out close to like 10 properties. We still have a few now. And then so like doing the real estate stuff kind of was my like business 101.
Hmm.
And from there, I kind of realized that that wasn't going to be what I wanted to do for the long term. And so that's when I really started looking at going into business. And after I made that decision, I think it was the 2018 summit. I was working on a sports bra company for like a year, and I was really just like, we were prototyping and trying to get the product right, and a year went by, and we still weren't able to launch a product. And so after that 2018 summit, I met a lot of really cool guys, and they kind of helped get me started and helped like bring me to the point where I was doing something actionable. And that's when I started to look online and bought a business.
So this sports bra thing, I read that in your in your post. Um, I could think of no other business where you don't have to use the product. What would attract you to that type of business? Was there something you saw or something your wife saw or?
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting. We like my wife and I wrote out a whole list of potential business ideas, and we kind of did like a an EV calculation, expected value of like
Yeah.
each business, and we saw that there was a need in the sports bra market, and that had the highest EV out of all of our other ideas. So we decided to go with that. So
Okay. Well, EV is expected value. If people don't know what that is, I actually gave a presentation on that at the summit a couple years ago. Just basically, what is the net greatest return on your investment for time? For instance, if you're going to spend 2 years building a business, what's the best net effect? Is it you make $100,000 a year, or do you make $10 million? So let's bring us to uh, you come across Hackett somewhere. Is it a brokerage house, a website? Where did you come across that?
yeah, so this is kind of like the crazy part where I think I went to a couple different, I don't even remember which one I found this business on, but I think it might have been like Biz Buy Sell or something comparable.
Hmm.
Um, and I was looking for basically a soft goods company where that imported the products. So
Yeah.
kind of like a learning business for when I went to launch the sports bra. And I think it was like the fourth listing I looked at, it was really easy for me to just like figure out what the business name was. Like typically on those broker websites, they don't,
Yeah.
they're kind of cryptic on what the business is and the name of the business and stuff. But I was kind of able to like, I don't know, like cross-examine the
Sure.
pages, and then I eventually like contacted the owner outside of the broker, so there was like no commission fees involved or anything like that. So
Nice.
um, yeah, it was like literally the fourth listing I looked at. I contacted him right away, and pretty much the next day we started negotiations. And I think it had to have been like 3 weeks from when I contacted him to where I had inventory in my storage unit.
Wow. So in that 3 weeks, what what specific items were you looking at to say, you know what, this could be a go. I can do this. What were you looking for? I know you mentioned in your post lead times and cash turns and stuff like that. Tell us more about that. Like what caught your fancy that said, you know what, I'm going to do this deal.
Yeah, sure. So one of the main things is that I had domain experience in it. I've been shooting guns for a really long time. I grew up around it and I was really comfortable with it. So that was kind of one of the major things that attracted to me to the business initially.
I got a gun
Um,
in Chicago. Doesn't really work.
yeah, I grew up in the suburbs though, so and
Okay.
then we have like yeah, we have land and all that good stuff to go to. But yeah, that's a whole another obstacle was to try to figure out how to get all of this inventory to downtown Chicago. So
Hmm.
the rent for storage is really high. But as far as what I was looking for was like, something simple as like positive cash flow, um, something where I didn't need to put in, I guess like too much cash where like I could manage, with the cash I had where I didn't really need to find any outside funding and things like that.
Hmm.
Um, and then you know the seller was really important. I was in a previous business deal that lasted about a year, like 2 or 3 years ago. It was for a construction company, and I really learned about like what a good seller is versus what a bad seller is. And
Hmm.
that's something I was definitely looking for when I bought Hackett equipment. So the guy was really, I could tell like he really wanted to make a deal happen.
Hmm.
I could tell he needed to do the deal. He was like a nice, like straightforward guy. And I'm sure he was sizing me up the same exact way.
Sure. So he was motivated.
Yeah, and I think that was the difference between the deal closing and the deal not closing. Because the previous deal that I was working on, the guy was like semi motivated, and he's like, I could do this for another couple of years and make the same money than what I would sell the company for right now, and he was kind of indifferent about it.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So it had some cash flow where you could take it over and it wasn't going to drain you. It might actually what? Was it positive enough that it wouldn't drain you?
correct, yeah,
Okay.
and I knew that I needed to put cash in to buy new inventory and to be able to fund advertising. Part of like looking at the business was being able to do a major value add. So I saw a lot of gaps in how he was running the company to where I could
Mm.
like exponentially add value to the business. And that kind of comes from like the real estate mindset of
Sure.
like finding like a almost like a dilapidated property and like turning it into something really nice.
Yeah. So you saw there was skewing opportunity here that, oh my God, he's not doing that. We could add this. We could do this. We can do that.
Yeah, definitely. Online, wholesale, pretty much like every aspect I knew I could improve upon. So
Mm. Did he ever say why he wanted out?
Yeah, he did, and I'm not sure if he was being completely truthful or not. He said he wanted out because of like spending more time with the family. At the at the time, he was running gun shows on the weekend. It was just like him. He would travel like to all these gun shows like throughout the state and sell product like hand to hand. So
Mm,
like you could imagine it's not something scalable. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And the time investment it took for him. He also worked a full-time job too, so I think that was one of his reasons. But I think he needed the money as well to pay off some debt. So
And just to clarify, you do still have your full-time job, right?
correct.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
Okay. Another question with the purchase. Did you look into the sourcing of the product? Like, because at that time, I believe this was what, April 2018. Um, did you have concerns about your suppliers being? I guess they're in China, right? With all the tariff talk
Correct.
and all that stuff.
Yeah, I wasn't in tune with the tariffs as I probably should have been. Um, But what we did was we checked the invoices and kind of like cross-referenced everything, and we actually spoke with the suppliers too, to see like how the relationship was and things like that.
Hmm.
So um, we definitely did some due diligence on it, but it wasn't something we really delve into too much.
Okay. Um, how does this business shore up when analyzed against sense, control, entry, need, scale, and time? What do you say is the strength? What do you say were the weaknesses, if there is any?
Yeah,
Because what
yeah,
I see
definitely.
is pretty strong.
Um, right now, the the entry aspect of it is pretty difficult. You need to get like bags made. The minimum order quantities are pretty high, and like you can't just jump into this business with like a couple $100.
Yeah.
Um, the one weakness though is that there's really nothing like patentable, so someone could easily just jump in there, buy your product and send it to a manufacturer to get like replicated basically. Um,
Yeah.
that's something I don't worry too much about. A lot of manufacturers have like stock products that you could buy and kind of like
Mhm.
uh, modify, but what we do is we specifically design everything ourselves. So it's not like we just like take something that's kind of like cookie cutter and put it out there. So
Mhm.
um, yeah, that's something that kind of differentiates us from the other companies for sure. As far as time goes, it's kind of interesting. Like right now, I'm probably spending about an hour a day during the week, just because I have like a full-time job and I can't really afford to do much more than that. And
Mhm.
then maybe a few hours on the weekend.
Wow.
I've been able to like taper back the time more and more. Like right when I first bought the company, it was kind of like a mad dash to get everything set up, and it was kind of a significant time investment for those first 3 months to just kind of get everything established. So the the holding costs, weren't so high.
Hmm. Nice.
But yeah, after getting like established and set up and realizing what I needed to focus on after my day job, um, things became a lot more clear. And there was I saw a post on the forum where someone was like talking about having a full-time job and it being a hindrance to being in business. And I see where these people are coming from, but one thing I'd like to say is that those 1 hour like focused hours
Mhm.
specifically on sales, they add up into something really big. And like to the point where you're sending out like it might be a 15-minute email and you're getting like a huge purchase order from it.
Sure.
So yeah, so I definitely think that's something that's scalable is when you're just focusing on sales and doing things that are really important that bring in those huge orders.
Did you call that things that don't scale?
Things that can
Or,
scale.
oh, okay. Um, so you get into the business, you start digging in. What what was a breakthrough moment you had that was um, kind of opened your eyes and was like, holy, I might be onto something here. This is getting traction. This is starting to ramp up here.
Yeah, sure. I was a little worried at first about the product because it kind of looked like just a couple regular backpacks, and I
Mhm.
didn't really, being a shooter myself, like I didn't really see what was so unique about them. But I saw like that thousands of people were buying these bags, and I was like, okay, there's something special about these. And then when I started introducing the product to like influencers and like wholesale buyers and distributors, like I mean the proof was kind of in the pudding as far as like the sales go. So um, what really was a turning point for me is when I ventured out of backpacks and I went into other products, specifically the glasses. Um, just like the product expansion and like when people see like something new, something different, um, the feedback you get and I guess what's that the feedback loop, that's
The
what you
feedback
call
loop.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah. So once that started really kicking in, especially with subscription boxes, that's when I really knew that like it was time to just like double down on this, put the bra business aside and kind of just focus.
um, good story that relates to that is I talked about this. I wrote about it in Unscripted. Steve Ells, he's the founder of Chipotle, huge, huge burrito business here in the states. I'm not
Yeah,
sure if
absolutely.
I'm not sure if they're international, but his dream or his pursuit at the time when he started Chipotle was he wanted to be in the fine dining business, and he couldn't afford the business. It was, fine dining is a different level of establishment where it's very. I mean, it could cost you $1 million to set up a nice place like that. So he ended up saying, you know what, I'm going to start a little burrito place. And that little burrito place was Chipotle. And at some point, it started growing and getting traction and just growing like a weed, where he actually forgot about that other business. And it was that feedback loop again that kicked on. And he said, you know what? I'm actually enjoying this. This is, originally he wanted to own the fine dining establishment, all of a sudden the feedback loop kicked on and people are demanding his Chipotle burritos. And obviously the rest is history. He goes public, guy's a billionaire, yeah, yeah, yeah. It sounds like that's kind of what you're experiencing. You got into this because, oh, I have an interest in this bra business. And then all of a sudden this thing is taking off and you're just like, well, forget about this other thing. I need to hit this up. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly how it went. It's kind of like doubling down on the thing that's going for you rather than, uh, keep pursuing something
yeah,
that isn't producing the returns. And then those returns also like keep you more motivated to you, and keep
absolutely.
you excited. So
I mean, it's very easy to be passionate when you got people emailing you saying, I love your product. Or, what do you got next? What's coming next? Hey, I need to order another 10,000 bags. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's pretty easy to be passionate there. You might,
yeah. And then oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Just one thing. There was a hurricane, I think in 2018 down south, and a lot of people were reviewing one of our bags and saying how like our bag was able to store so much stuff that like they were able to like take a lot more out of their house,
Wow.
you know, all their valuables and things like that when the hurricane hit, and that was really like cool to see, and
Yeah,
it really helps like other people make the purchase, and like everybody just kind of stands by your product when you see
yeah.
things like that.
The beauty of a productocracy, when people love what you do, you're probably going to love what you do. So that's
Yeah, absolutely.
a great testament to that. Um, you mentioned a subscription box. Now, it sounds like from what I read on the thread that you're not really focused on, selling a bag here or there on your Shopify site. You're going after big POs, big purchase orders, channels, things that can move, you know, mountains of product real quickly. Tell us about your philosophy on that and how that works, and what do you think uh, how you go about that? How do you find these people? How do you, is there a phone book where you can find somebody that's the purchasing order guy at Cabela's?
Yeah, so I could tell you how it got started and how that kind of led to a domino effect. I took a shot in the dark and sponsored this podcast, and one of the smaller subscription box companies in my space just so happened to listen to this podcast, and they
Oh,
reached out to me, and they're like, hey, could we get a few hundred units of a bag? And I was like, are you serious? Like that's like half my inventory. Sure, yeah, absolutely. And then that kind of like helped open my mind, to like how easy it could really be, and how many like other options I had to pursue this. um so the other interesting thing too is that they prepaid for everything before they even
mm,
received, and it's kind of funny. Each subscription box has their own needs depending on where they are in like their own like maturity of business. So like the smaller guys, they want to be like delivered quickly. They'll pay a premium if you have like the inventory on hand, where they don't have to like put a deposit down, wait 3 months, and then get the inventory. Some of the bigger guys, when you're ordering thousands and thousands of units, they have to plan out a lot further,
mhm.
in their schedule, and so that planning requires more cash up front, and things like that. So after I got into the first box, I started reaching out to all the boxes that I possibly could. Um, and like I said, each box has their own certain needs, and so some said yes, some said no. But I was able to get into three separate boxes, and then I got a reorder for, it was like the very first subscription box did a reorder for a different product, which was really cool. And a lot of guys, they talk about how it's not like exactly sustainable, but it's a really nice thing to have those like lump sum like nuts to
Sure.
complement like your e-commerce business. Um, I will say the hardest part is getting these guys to talk to you. So you definitely have to get crafty on how to get them to respond for sure.
Have you done anything there that would draw attention, sending them product, cleverly crafted email? Anything you can share there?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the main things is to contact the whether it's a subscription box, like a retailer, whatever channel that they're not really known for, but they want to grow, they're putting more attention to those channels. So like if they're really big on Instagram, maybe messaging them on Facebook will really, you know, get them to talk to you,
Mm.
or just like hit them all platforms kind of thing. I do have like a script that I use, um, and it's been a while since I sent a message out to subscription box, so I forgot exactly what it was. Maybe I can post it before. It's just like something really simple,
Mhm.
and one thing about the subscription boxes is that they like to see that you have some authority. So, if you only have like one or two, like 10 followers, um, it's really hard for them to want to consider you.
Yeah.
They want brands that add value to their business, and sometimes they don't want to take the risk on a new brand unless the price is very favorable, or something like
Mhm.
that.
So I got a question. I'm a bit confused on. Uh, w- your bag has got to be pretty expensive. I imagine $150, $200. How does that go into a subscription box?
Yeah, so I guess the bigger bag is a lot more expensive. But we have smaller bags, and we're coming out with even more smaller bags. Like some of these boxes, the way they plan things out, they'll order like specific size boxes for their like monthly subscription, depending on what products are going in there. So it's not. it's not always going to be a really small box. Like sometimes they'll order a run of big boxes so they can specifically put a product of yours in, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you have any employees? I didn't even ask that. Are
Oh,
you?
sure. So I have one full-time VA,
Mhm.
and then I work with mainly contractors. So I would like to get to the point where I have one specific warehouse guy fulfilling orders, but right now all our fulfillment is done through a 3PL or a fulfillment center.
So, what do you think is working for you? You said it's retail channels, getting these. Well, how many retail channels do you have? I thought I read you grabbed a couple.
Yeah, so we have several channels. Obviously, the e-commerce is there. Subscription box, I would consider a channel.
Yes.
We're in a bunch of different like smaller gun stores and mid-sized gun stores throughout the country, um, which is really cool. We signed on a wholesale distributor, which is like the largest distributor in the industry. So
Ooh.
I think I can consider that another channel as
Yes.
well. So you could sell to the retailer, and then you could also sell to the wholesale distributor. Um, so then my next step would be like a big box store or something like that.
Sure. How'd you grab that distributor? The biggest distributor? Was that several emails or?
Yeah, I think we did a trade show in January. It was in Las Vegas, and it's a big deal to be at this trade show if you're in the industry. And I think that that really helped us get in the door. Um, I went to their booth. They had a booth set up as well, and I went
Mhm.
to the booth, gave him a price sheet, introduced myself, and all of that. And then I got some random sales guy's contact information, and I followed up with him, and he was able to pass my information on to their product buyer. So,
Okay.
um,
So you're
you
you're
know,
getting out there. You
yeah, it's really interesting. I don't think anything was possible without like having either like a face-to-face conversation, a phone conversation. Like the emails are really good, but like to get that like more like connected experience, I think is a factor to the success as well.
So when you said the trade show, you mean you're just walking around? You didn't spend thousands of dollars on a booth?
We were actually lucky enough to get a booth
Oh
at this
wow.
trade show. Yeah, and it's a really hard thing to do. And it just so happens that this specific trade show was launching a new company. Um, I guess like a new company, what would you say? Kind of like a showcase where they got like, I don't know, maybe like 100 different new companies.
Hmm.
And the previous owner signed up to be like on the waiting list. So we were one of the first people that they contacted to get invited to this. And it wound up not being like as expensive as like the main floor, but it was like for one day we had the booth set up. So I mean, we didn't get as much exposure as everybody else, but um, everybody came to that new attraction because it was something different, and we had a lot of foot traffic, I should say,
Hmm.
and that led to signing on more dealers because it was industry specific, so it wasn't consumer facing. Um, but we definitely got in front of like a lot of different like influencers, media people, and stores. So that was really cool.
Cool. So as with growing any business, it's usually about finding the channels that work for you, and it's usually most of the channels don't work, and there's a few of them that just knock it out of the park. Where do you see uh, that your big growth is going to come from? I know you mentioned in your thread that you were, and I think this is a great idea. Independent distributors, like you know, where they could maybe go to a gun show. You can have an international gun show presence or something like that. That sounds like a spectacular way to just expand and scale without an additional huge time investment on your part. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that's actually one channel I forgot to mention. I'm sure there might be a couple other channels. So The gun show thing, I mean, that's nationwide, and we have a distributor in, I think, like 6 different states right now, and they kind of travel along their state and sell our product, and they kind of have their own territories and things like that. I would really love to expand that into like something kind of kind of almost like like MLM feeling,
Sure.
to where you know we have like a community and everybody's just trying to help each other sell product at these shows, and kind of get a group of these I guess like entrepreneurs like that want to just like learn how to sell and get the product out there, and I think that is a good idea and something we probably should be focusing more on. It's not gun show season right now, so it's kind of like hard to
Hmm.
find the shows that are going on. It's usually in the fall or winter, maybe early spring when that kind of happens. So um, that's probably the limitation right now is the calendar. But as far as like long-term success of the business, it's got to be wholesale, um, either to the wholesale distributors, the gun show distributors, or just us selling directly to stores, and even getting into the big box stores. So,
When you first bought the company, you mentioned that this business had a main channel, and then several went obsolete. What did that mean? What actually happened there?
oh yeah, totally forgot about that.
I've done my
So
research, man.
yeah, yeah. Um, what happened? Uh, I would say half of this guy's sales came from Facebook, and social media has
Oh,
been really taking a hammering on certain companies, certain industries, and um, since 50% of his revenue was coming from Facebook, and they decided to not like be favorable toward gun companies, pretty much that revenue stream got totally, obliterated. And so I was left with literally just selling product at gun shows. And I was like, wow, there's got to be another way to do this. And I guess that's another thing that contributed to wanting to do more wholesale as well.
yeah, and you know what? You can have a treasure trove of retailers selling for you. Uh, Dick's, Cabela's, Outdoor World, whatever it is, Camping World, and Facebook can't do a fucking thing about it.
Yeah. Right.
I gotta love that.
That was a well crafted F bomb.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm not gonna get into it, but I mean that sucks. I mean, you're selling a package of it's
Yeah,
just I have
it's it,
no. I mean, I'm irritated because I tried to advertise my book on Facebook, and they refused it. They called it a get rich quick scam or something. And it's just they love just freaking fucking with everyone who doesn't fit their little political narrative. So that's a challenge for you. And how do you see yourself addressing that in this political climate where you're not in an industry that has any mainstream love?
yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. And I've been moving away from using any like channel that's extremely sensitive to our content and our products. Um, when you're in like an industry like mine, you got to kind of do the things that used to work back in the day, like email. Email is actually a really big source of income for us. And growing that email list is really important. And then also you got to find the other channels that like aren't really susceptible to Facebook just turning off your stream of income. And even like Amazon, Shopify and Amazon are also other sites that could easily turn their head away from industries like
Oh
mine.
yeah.
And you know and so basically if Shopify were to hate on the gun industry, I would have to start from scratch building a whole new website and things like that. So that's something, you kind of have to be like forward
Oh.
looking at. And then Amazon too. Amazon's getting more and more difficult to like navigate and to it's getting a lot more
Sure.
competitive as well. So, and they could easily not want to sell gun-related products too. So, I mean, I really think something like this can be applied to any industry, though, too. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be something politically sensitive. You should always kind of be on the lookout for new channels and ways to kind of uh, protect yourself from, I guess, like any control
Mm-hmm.
um,
Control
deficiencies
issue.
that you might have, you know?
Yeah. What what hasn't worked for you? Where you were like, I don't know, you either lost money or it just didn't work out or forget that. Is there anything that you just it just bombed? It didn't work.
Yeah, definitely. There was a lot of bombing. uh, Advertising is one bitch. It's like once you find the channels that really work, it's nice, but finding those channels can be extremely difficult, especially in noisy markets.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and uh, we did a little bit of radio advertising that bombed, even though we were like a local company and we advertised locally. Like we got good sales, but nothing that was like positive ROI. And actually, I would say that most advertising that we've done has not been positive ROI.
Now let me
So,
stop you right there.
um,
What
sure.
what kind of because my experience in radio advertising is it was real cheap. I mean, it was literally a couple $100 to get all kinds of placements. Was it super expensive, or did you negotiate on the cost? Or
Yeah, so they where they really get you is like the long-term commitment. So I'm really leery about
oh,
doing those now. And so it's really nice for the first like month or two, but then, if you have to pay for 6 months, like people kind of get desensitized to your advertising after, I don't know, maybe 10 times hearing it, like they kind of just tune you out then.
yeah.
And these every like long-term commitment deal that I've done like was great for the first 2 months, but then after that it just kind of petered out.
Hmm.
So I'm really conscious of not doing those long-term commitments anymore.
Did you have a special landing page to determine that it was coming from the radio?
I had like coupon code set up. We did have
Oh,
a
okay.
specific landing page too. Um, yeah, so yeah, I would say we did. It's really easy to track nowadays where a lot of stuff's coming from. Um, One thing that really worked well for us is these publications that did email blasts. So I'm sure every industry has like magazines and things like that.
Hmm.
And these publications have humongous email lists. It's crazy. Um, and they have a sense of authority too. So when they put an
Sure.
article out or like, top 10 recommended, like stuff like that really works. So that's something we've been doing a lot of lately, and yeah,
So stuff that moves the needle sounds like it's working well. Big retailers, big subscription boxes, companies with big email lists, stuff like that.
yeah, yeah, yep, absolutely. And one thing a lot of people don't consider is like the ancillary benefits you get from advertising. So I mentioned earlier that we sponsored a podcast, and that's how we got our first subscription box.
Hmm.
Like, you're opening every time you advertise in a new like I guess market, you're opening yourself up to like all these new people, and you never know who's going to be like important.
Hmm.
And it seems like every time we open up a new channel, someone important reaches out to us, wanting to try the product or buy, a lot of product too. So
Do you still have the partnership with American Handgunner?
yes, yes, we do actually.
What is that? Is that a sponsorship or what does that entail?
So that was the email blast that I was referring
Oh,
to.
okay.
Yeah, they have a network of like a bunch of different publications, and we got into a few of their magazines, and the magazine advertising is really hard to calculate if that was positive or not. Like you could see like traffic spiking a
Hmm.
little bit, but that's really it. Um, but a lot of these companies have like tons of ways you could capitalize on their platform. So it's a matter of finding the right ways to capitalize on other people's platforms, I guess I should say.
remind me to message you after the show. I might have a channel for you.
Okay.
If you haven't already found it, it'd be perfect. So you're probably knee deep into the gun culture, the patriot culture, that kind of thing, because that sounds like
Yeah.
where your market is going to be.
Yep.
That's your
Yep.
audience, basically.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
What
That sounds awesome.
you recently got an SBA loan
Yeah, I closed on it on Monday. Um,
this Monday?
man, that yeah,
Oh
this
wow.
Monday. So I'm glad I closed on it before the call because I would have been a little embarrassed
Well,
if
I'm
I didn't.
impressed that they would give a loan because it's government sponsored, correct?
Yeah, and I could talk a lot about it, but if you have any specific questions, I'd be glad to answer anything
Sure. I
about
mean,
it.
what a beginning entrepreneur has to do to obtain a SBA loan. I mean, if you can do it with you have a full time job, you're in an industry that's a little, that I can see the government
Yeah,
saying no on. Yeah, I mean, tell us what you can about the process and what do you think they're looking for. Um, yeah.
yeah. I should do a whole thread on this because it's a big animal. But basically, they right when I first contacted the banks, they were like, "Wait, you've only been in business like a year." And I would be like, no, the company's actually been around for 2.5 years. There was another previous owner. And they're like, well, you didn't buy the company, you bought only the assets of it. And I was like, well, yeah, that's true. And then so they would come up with an array of excuses why they wouldn't give you any money, basically. And
Hmm.
so I kept getting turned down a lot. And you know, it was really like discouraging. You contact 10 banks and they all basically say no for similar reasons.
Wow.
But one thing I found out was that, you know, you want to start with like the people in your immediate like vicinity. So like the bank that you have been using your whole life, or whatever for your business needs, like they probably do SBA. You want to talk to like basically any business friends you have.
Hmm.
I've actually got a really good SBA reference. It's kind of like state specific, but they're in like 7 different states. And one thing I found out is that you want to contact the banks that are really really hungry to just do loans. Like they, the lending environment right now, I think, has loosened up since I guess maybe like the financial crisis
Crisis.
in
Hmm.
yeah. And now like if you can find the banks that are really pushing SBA loans and get in with them, it definitely gives you an advantage. And so um, I found one bank that was willing to give me like a $10,000 line of credit, right? And that's all they would do for me. And I was like, okay, well, I guess let's just do that since everybody else is saying no. Um, but then I forgot to mention that I had a huge purchase order come in. And I was like, is there any way we could count like this income towards this loan, And like,
His eyes lit
one
up.
thing yeah, yeah. I sent them the purchase order, and they looked at it and they're like, I actually think, despite everything wrong with your business, because you were able to execute on a big sale. I guess I didn't fully execute on it, but you were able to obtain a big sale. They're like, we think, we basically believe in you, and we're going to give you X amount of money because of it. And one thing I've learned throughout this it's been like a 6-month process from when I applied to the loan and when I closed on it on Monday, where I really think that all banks are willing to waive whatever requirements they have as long as you can prove some like substantial execution.
Okay. This is-
So being able to prove something definitely helps,
mhm. So talk to your
despite
local
all the odds
banks.
against you. Yeah, talk
Talk
to
to
the
hungry
local bank.
banks and
Yep.
demonstrate some execution.
Yep. Despite what they tell you, that's something that is worth at least trying. You might get a lot of no's, but that one yes is really going to make the difference for sure.
And execution makes a difference because it makes the difference between walking in with a business plan and absolutely having nothing to show for it, and then as opposed to, hey, here's $100,000 order, and I need some help with. Can you help me out? I mean, it's just it's night and day. Um, so you mentioned that there's an old you and there's a new you. Old you was reading books.
Yeah.
Old you, tell us about old you and new you.
Oh man, old me was the total entrepreneur, like really not like very limited mindset beliefs and things like that, and like doing things like blogging and really stupid shit that like I should have like realized at the time that it really didn't go anywhere, and it wasn't going to go anywhere. And a lot of people are pushing different books on how to make money. Like probably, I'm not really big into this, but I'm sure a lot of people are writing books on how to like do Bitcoin, and there's always something new. It used to
Yeah.
be real estate investing. It could be Bitcoin now. I don't even like pay attention to that stuff anymore.
Digital marketing
But
agencies.
yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, starting a digital marketing agency now. Yeah. And so like all those shiny objects I pursued at the time, and it really wasn't until I started communicating with like the forum members that were doing like real things, and even attending the summit kind of like changed my life too, to where things started changing for me, to where if these guys can do it, I surely can do it. And they kind of also gave me the confidence to just like jump in head first with everything. And when you're doing things that add real value,
Hmm.
to specific industries, and I could talk a little bit more about that too, um, rather than doing what everybody else is doing, it's like a night and day difference, and it totally transforms you as an entrepreneur or a business owner for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
I wholeheartedly agree. Is you if you're following the crowd, it's just so much harder as opposed to doing what the market wants and what the market is demanding. Um, I say if a guru is selling you on an opportunity that you should be getting into, it's probably not something you want to be doing. Um,
yeah, exactly.
it's just becomes a cattle call. Then, what do you think your end game here is? Is there an end game? Do you want to hold this to the rest of your life? Do you want to sell it in 5 years? Are there any targets if you want to sell it? I mean, what do you see in your, I say, a 5 year vision?
Yeah, so there is definitely an end game for this business. I originally bought the company as kind of like a training wheel type business just to kind of get my feet wet, and it's definitely turned into something a lot bigger than that, which is really nice. And I think as long as I can get, I want to kind of treat this like a flip, kind of like how I did with the rental properties,
Yeah,
and be able to flip it in maybe a year, 2 years, or 3 years, and move on to the next like thing, because I feel like I could add way more value now to businesses that I guess also provide value to everybody else than something like a gun bag business would,
sure. Oh yeah, I mean,
um,
yeah, I
right.
mean, you're taking the hard road first.
Right. Yeah.
This
And
is
so
a
basically,
hard niche that you're in, and you're doing well in it. So yeah, that's going to translate really well in some other industry where maybe you can advertise on Facebook, and there won't be a little, a sour taste maybe in someone's mouth when they hear about it or something. So
yeah. And specifically in the wholesale world, like that's kind of where I feel like I want to be. Um, selling not the onesies and twosies, but selling, hundreds and thousands of units, or even millions of units in one order. Like
yeah,
that's something that I feel like has been a strength of mine, and I've grown into it. It's not something that came naturally, um, which is kind of interesting because all of my past experiences led me to where I am today. So I mean, maybe the blogging thing was stupid, but I'm here because of it, you know.
Yes,
So
it's a part of your story. So let's say that
yeah.
happens. Let's say you sell the business, $10 million. Uh, what's next? Bra business?
Well, actually, the broad business is a $10 million business, or maybe a $20 million business. So I think I'd have to do like a $50 million business, something. I know the specific product that I want to get into. I probably don't want to say it right now,
Sure.
but it's something very high volume and consumable. So that's what I definitely can say.
Barbecue sauce?
No, not barbecue sauce, but it could be sold in a store that sells barbecue sauce.
Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
we're wrapping it up here. So people on the call, if you have some questions, start thinking about them. Just a few more questions here.
Sure.
Um,
Could I add something too?
sure, absolutely.
For the people who are thinking about maybe selling their business in the future, one thing I learned during the SBA loan process, I was talking with like one of their corporate like lenders, SBA lenders, and basically anything under 100,000, like a branch level bank could loan you the money pretty quickly. Anything over 100,000, it goes through this whole process, like where it takes a long time.
Hmm.
Um, and so if you're a newer company that wants to sell like in a relatively short time frame, what they told me was that it's really good to have 3 years worth of tax returns because you're opening up your pool of buyers like exponentially. And so that's something I'm definitely going to consider before I sell the business is how big is the pool of buyers going to be for it. So
I'm,
I just kind of wanted to add that in there.
I'm confused. Are you saying if you're selling it for more than $100,000, or you're getting a loan for more than $100,000?
Um, yes. So basically, if you're going to get the loan for more than $100,000, whether you're a business trying to obtain the loan or a buyer that's going to buy a business, you still there's that threshold where it's like a branch level
Hmm.
loan versus a corporate level loan,
And they want 3 years of tax returns.
Yeah, and that pretty much like I would probably say like would open up your buyer pool like 90%. So when you're able to get those 3 years worth of tax returns, and I'm sure other forum members who've sold businesses could probably attest to this. But that's something I learned during my closing that I didn't know, and I'm glad I found out about it
Mhm.
because it could have been a lot harder for me to sell next year versus 2 years from now,
Sure.
if you get what I'm saying.
Some of the wrap up questions here. Are there any business tools, business strategies, business things that you come across that you would recommend?
So I know everybody wants to hear like all of the like online tools that I'm using. I will say this first and foremost, the telephone and email are
Ah,
probably the most important tools you're ever going to need, and maybe even the only tools you need. Um, I think I could pretty much like axe the online side of business and probably do okay just making phone calls and emails.
yeah.
So yeah,
And the telephone is very underrated with a lot of the young people nowadays. So if you're using the telephone rapidly, and your competition is a 25-year-old guy or a woman who's used to the social media scene and used to email, there'll be weeks that will go by that they don't pick up the phone. So there's an advantage there. Trust me.
yeah. I could definitely see that if you're hiding behind your computer and not picking up the phone and not sending emails and not direct messaging other people on social media like you should be, you're going to be at a significant disadvantage.
Uh,
But as far as the online tools go, I use Shopify, Klaviyo, like Alan Crawley mentioned in the last call.
mhm.
Klaviyo is a big email tool, and that's something I really stand behind. And I recommend everybody check it out. That's probably the single most important thing to my online
Wow,
game, I
that's two
would
in a
say.
row for
Yeah.
Clavio.
Two in a row.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any books that you would recommend aside from anything I've written? Doesn't need to be business. Could be anything: branding, business, life.
Yeah. I really liked Alan's answer last time, so I'm not going to use that. But High Hanging Fruit, if you want to get into wholesaling, is a really, really good book. I'm probably going to read it for the third or fourth time.
Oh,
Like, there's a
wow.
lot of really good golden nuggets in it. It's about the coconut water company, Vita Coco,
Yes.
and their rise to fame before they got bought out by, I think, Pepsi or Coca-Cola or something like that. Um, so on the business front, that's been a really impactful book. And then kind of like on the just like life front, like anything written by, I think his name's Eckhart Tolle.
Oh, yes.
I've been really liking lately, and it's kind of helped my mindset in the business and actually all aspects of life too. So
Sure. I
yeah.
can absolutely recommend Eckhart Tolle too. I've read all of his work. Really gets you into the now, enjoying the moment, even though sometimes as moments as entrepreneurs are not very easy. High hanging fruit. Do you know who the author of that is?
Um, the former owner of the
Okay.
company, hang
Well,
on,
it's a good name. It'll be found. Last
it'll be
question.
easy to find. Yeah.
Last question before we take some questions. Is there any advice you give to a new entrepreneur other than the entirety of all the great advice you've given in the last hour? Is there any new advice you would give to a new entrepreneur who has not broken through to growing their business, starting a business?
Yeah, so I think the single most important thing is to get out of your comfort zone. So um, get out of your comfort zone and just like really commit to something, and kind of just like bring all of your like heart and energy
Hmm.
into it. So
Monogamy, one thing, and then go kill it.
yeah, exactly.
All right, questions. Let's see.
I could take a couple more too, so I mean it's no big deal.
I haven't been following to the chat log here, so I'm a little.
And why keep the job is one of them. That's a
Oh,
good
okay, yeah,
question.
go ahead. If you go ahead and read it.
Yeah. So the question is, why am I still keeping the job? And there's a lot of reasons for it. Some of them are personal, but you, I've talked to a lot of guys who quit their job too early, and it was really detrimental to the business. So like not being able to like supplement like your entire income, it's a really big challenge to do that, especially if you're used to like a really big salary, kind of like I am right now.
Mhm.
um, and you kind of like built a lifestyle around that salary too. So I definitely would say like the whole lifestyle inflation is in play there. I mean, if I was just eating ramen noodles in like a dormitory or something like that, it would probably be pretty easy to quit. But
Yeah,
um, there's a lot of factors at play, and I think it's different for everybody. But one thing I will say is that most people will say don't quit too early. So
and I agree with that. Did you rope in any experts or professionals to help you design the bags or the equipment, and do you test them yourself before you put them to market?
I think pretty much everything I've done is been expert driven. So there's a forum member who I consider a mentor who helped me buy the business. Uh, there's another business coach that I had that I met from the forum who was really awesome. And then that leads up to like creating products. I create the products myself, but that's something that I want to be able to subcontract out or find an employee to help me with. That's probably the biggest burden on my time because I'm so focused on just making sales. Spending the time to bring new products to market has been it's been a challenge for me. So
You did you have any specific goals? Another question. Did you have any specific goals or objectives when acquiring the business? And since you've been growing the business, did you achieve them? If not, how do you adapt?
yeah, so all of my expectations when I first bought the business were pretty much like let down. And so I was basically like forced to figure it out or lose the company, you know. And I will say that no matter what you think the future is going to be, it's probably not going to be like that. So you better have things in your back pocket to move into.
Mm. Is there a metric that you're looking to say, you know what, I'm done with my job?
I have different like business metrics that I look at, but being able to just supplement like my entire income is a big thing for me, and or even like a liquidation event would probably make me quit my business because that would help me fund my next venture for sure.
Okay. You mentioned in the thread in this question pertains to that about SKUs, expanding your product line, expanding into anything proprietary, different colors.
Yeah, yeah. Um, this whole running a business has been really interesting because you got to try to manage cash flow properly, and some things have longer sell through rates than others, and it's really I found out that it's really important to get things that turn volume quickly as well as having things that are kind of like flagship mainstays. But yes, we are expanding into things that I would say are patentable, and more unique to the industry that could definitely make waves. Um, and there's other things too. This is kind of I referred to this a few maybe like 10 or 20 minutes ago. Part of my philosophy is finding not only like product solutions but helping other businesses, um, I guess providing solutions for them. So like for a subscription box, for example, what problems are they having and how could I help them solve it?
And
You know, so a lot of people think that their customer is only the end user, when people should actually be thinking that, there's other customers too on even like the business end. So like helping other companies succeed as well has been a really important aspect, I believe.
yeah, that makes sense. A subscription box company saying, "Hey, we really could offer this," and then kind of sh- lights the light bulb up. So, well, that will put an end to this. It's five after. We're over an hour now. I want to thank you, Greg, for sharing with us all your wisdom. I really appreciate that. There will be a recording of this call, assuming Greg's okay with that, that I will drop in the
Yes.
thread within 24 hours. Also, that thread will be available for questions that we were not able to entertain here. So please post there. Also, be respectful um, with the questions. And thanks again
And
for
the
the.
information too.
Yeah. Anything you'd like to say, Greg, before we depart?
Yes, there is one more thing. I've told you this the first time I met you, and I told this the second time I met you, and I told you that I would keep telling you this, is that I just wanted to thank you for what you've done, and you've like really changed my life. So
Oh, you just made my year. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Greg, and I'm glad you're having some success here. And I can't wait to hear it steamroll into some bigger and better things. So, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it, and all you guys out there. Next until next month, we're going to be looking for someone else to come on the call. I got some people in mind. Don't be shy. If you're approached, come on board. Thanks, guys.
thank you.